Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio, how to survive hidden healthcare and hospital dangers with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rulo. Pat has over 20 years experience as a professional public speaker, and for the next hour, she's going to be your healthcare and hospital survival guide. Each week, you will say, "Oh," as Pat exposes and explores little-known hospital hazards, delves into the deep waters of dangerous healthcare practices, picks the brains of her good-looking and influential guests, all guaranteed to keep you and your family safe in today's fragmented healthcare system. The program is for informational purposes only and is not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem or as a substitute for consulting a licensed medical professional. And now your host, Pat Rulo.
I can't bear again no more, baby. I got too much to ride. But I'll survive. Keep on.
Hello, my name is Joe. Is this Pat Rulo, the host of Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio?
Why, yes, it is.
Who are you?
Who am I? I am you. I am every person who has ever been in a hospital or doctor's office and has received less than acceptable treatment.
Who are you?
I am you. The person who got an infection during a simple outpatient procedure.
Wait, who are you?
I am you, the patient whose questions are ignored, who struggles to speak to the doctor as he or she has one foot out the door. I am the missed heart attack, the hospital-acquired infection, the wrong diagnosis, the unanswered call button.
Oh, so you're all about me.
The show is not about pointing a finger at hospitals, doctors, or nurses. It's not about a political agenda or party preferences. It's about you, your family, your friends, and your loved ones. It's about becoming informed of all the hospital hazards, what they are, how and why they happen, and what you can do about them. This show is about empowerment. It's about doing everything you can to stay safe during any and every healthcare encounter. Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Yes, that's OH with an exclamation point. Will cause you to say "oh," as each week we delve into little-known hospital and healthcare dangers. When you understand why something happens, you are better equipped to do something to change it and prevent it from happening to you. If enough people begin to speak up, together, each of us can alter the current precarious path of today's unsafe healthcare practices. Today, I'm going to take a look back at how the lack of disclosure and apology after a medical mishap does nothing to improve patient safety, satisfaction, or respect, and how it actually perpetuates unsafe healthcare practices by not allowing the providers the opportunity to learn from the error. And our guests are going to pull us forward and show us what they are doing to implement a successful model of disclosure, apology, and offer to achieve positive results for both patients and providers. So if this sounds good to you, which it should, then find a comfy seat, pour yourself a cup of your favorite and soothing libation, and enjoy the next short hour with us. But now, it's time for the healthcare hazard of the week. Since our guests are here to talk about apology and disclosure, it makes me think back to my mom's story and how no one during our entire 4-month hospital stay bellied up to the bar and did the right thing. But what they didn't know was that I knew exactly what had gone wrong and who was responsible. And I knew this on day 2. My mom was in the hospital for shoulder surgery after she fell at work and crushed it to the point of replacement versus repair. While in the recovery room, she suffered a heart attack. And from what I now know, she was showing signs of this prior to the surgery, yet no one took her complaints seriously. While in the recovery room, she consistently complained of not feeling well, pointed to her chest, and waited for help. Meantime, during the next 7 hours, the staff ran 4 different EKGs. Finally, someone determined that she was in trouble and summoned a cardiologist who eventually got her to the cath lab to intervene. Well, long story short, she was in the hospital for 4 months, staving off infections, C. diff, medication errors, overdoses, lack of therapy, serious psychotropic drug reactions, and on and on and on. Well, as I mentioned earlier, on day 2 of this nightmare, a doctor whom I did not know found me in the hospital hallway, took my arm, and pulled me into a tiny conference room just outside the intensive care unit. And as he handed me a manila envelope, his precise words were, "This stinks, and you need to do something about it." Wow. With great trepidation, I opened the envelope to find 4 EKG rhythm strips with my mom's name at the top, as well as the date and time. That being the morning right after the shoulder surgery while in the recovery room. As I studied the squiggly lines thinking, I have no idea what this means, my eyes went to the top of the page where in plain English I read, "Acute anterolateral myocardial infarction present," highlighted by asterisks. Now, I'm not a doctor, but I think I might have been somewhere along the line because I somehow have the ability to understand medical stuff. So I knew what this meant. Basically, it means heart attack in progress. Well, the mystery doctor, who thankfully understood the power of disclosure, even though it was a backdoor effort, he and I had a few more meetings during the next week that left me fully informed as to what happened. So began the next 4 months, an interesting game of sorts, a weird hide-and-seek peekaboo of me watching people's eyes and body language, something I'm actually quite good at, asking pointed questions, noticing how certain doctors who were no longer part of the care team would sneak and peek into my mom's room during times when they wouldn't expect me to be there. They would sometimes hang around in the halls during rounds, checking on her prognosis and shaking in their scrubs, I'm sure, to hope that she survived and that no one would be the wiser as to what happened to cause the missed diagnosis. Yet all the while, I was watching them. Kind of like wearing sunglasses, but not. I knew, but they didn't know that I knew. Secret huddles, whispers, glances, diverted eyes. It was a scary, yet sadly humorous view with the ugly backdrop of just plain wrong. And all through it, no one, not even the kindest of the doctors or nurses, no one ever spoke the words to me. No one said, "Here's what happened." No one offered an explanation, let alone an apology. They thought I was in the dark, so let's leave it alone. Was I angry? Yes and no. I was too concerned about my mom's condition and knew that I had to be on site 24/7 to make sure that nothing else untoward would occur, to waste what little energy I had left to be angry. But how human would it have been for someone to have approached us and explained the error and perhaps offered to pave the next 4 months with some help? Just some little things like, "Here's a parking pass for you to use. Oh, I see you're here from dusk till dawn. Here's a cafeteria voucher for you. Go get a tuna sandwich on us. Oh, your daughter's flying in from Colorado to visit her near-dead grandmother? We'll pay for the flight." But no. Instead, everyone scurried and hurried around, hoping that Mom would survive and that we'd get the heck out of there before somehow we figured things out. Well, way too late for that. As much as I honor most of them for doing a Herculean job of saving my mom's life, I really don't respect them. How smart for everyone if there was a system to encourage and allow physicians to reveal any errors without blame and shame, to create a process for a quick investigation to help avoid similar incidents from recurring, if there was a system to provide apologies for avoidable injuries and to offer timely and fair compensation when appropriate without having to resort to litigation. It's sickening that disclosure and apology in medicine has to be viewed as some novel pilot study. Come on, people. It's simple. It's the right thing to do. And with that out of the way, here's something else that is the right thing to do, and that involves preparing your healthcare power of attorney. Thankfully, we had one in place during my mom's stay, and boy, did it come in handy. So let's spend the next 2 minutes with the kind folks from Schraff & King in Willoughby Hills, Ohio, and hear some legal news you can use. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks for having me.
John, what is a healthcare power of attorney?
A healthcare power of attorney is a legal document which permits you to name an agent to make healthcare and medical decisions for you if you're incapacitated and unable to make those decisions for yourself. A lot of people think it's just something you get when you're older or when you have health concerns, but I can tell you that you have a lot of young people coming in, 18 or 20, 22, asking for them too. And it's the kind of document that a lot of times you don't know you need it until it's too late. And if you're incapable of signing one, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get one at that point. If you don't have a healthcare power of attorney in place and you need to have someone make medical decisions for you because you're incapable, your only alternative is to get a guardianship and have that filed down at the court. I can tell you that's a more burdensome process and it has higher costs. So in the long run, to be prudent and have a healthcare power of attorney is really your best option.
If our listeners want more information about a healthcare power of attorney, how can they find out more about you and Schraff & King?
Well, they can first go online to our website, www.schraffking.com, or they could contact us at our offices. The phone number is 440-585-1600.
John, you've got lots of information for us. Thanks for sharing it today.
Thank you.
Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Generation America, the smart, conservative, and traditional 50-plus membership organization. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.
We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Let's spend the next 2 minutes with our resident cleaning and infection preventionist, Daryl Hicks, nationally recognized as one of the top experts in infection control, as well as author of the book, Infection Prevention for Dummies. Daryl, we know that double dipping a cracker into dip or a chip into salsa can spread bacteria from a person's mouth to the food. Is there a double dipping rule when it comes to cleaning?
There sure is, Pat. One of my pet peeves is to go to a restaurant or a dining facility and see the same bucket and same cloth rag used to wipe tables, wipe seats, and pick up stuff off the floor, and then they put it back in the bucket and use it the next time. So all you're doing is overloading the cleaner or the disinfectant that's in that bucket. And when it becomes overloaded with soil, then it no longer is a disinfectant. You might as well just be using water. So our folks are trained to set up their bucket with the water mixed with the disinfectant to put their clean microfiber cloths into the bucket. When they pull a cloth out, they wring out the excess disinfectant, and then they fold the cloth in half and half again, and then that gives them 8 sides to that one cloth. After using those 8 sides, then the cloth never goes back into the bucket. It goes into a soiled laundry bag that then goes to the laundry to be washed and dried. Never double dip into a bucket. So even at home, if you clean a bathroom with one cloth, then you should not use that cloth for other bathrooms or other surfaces in the home. Try to use one cloth per room.
Great advice, Daryl. So no matter whether we're eating or we're cleaning, no double dipping.
No double dipping.
Very good.
How can we learn more about you and your book, Infection Prevention for Dummies?
That would be on my website, darylhicks.com.
Thank you, Daryl, for joining us today. We look forward to your weekly guest visits, as you always have so much usable information to share.
Thanks, Pat.
You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rulo. And if you know us, you know that we work diligently to bring you only the best of the best when it comes to our guests. And today we are quite fortunate to have some groundbreakers with us, Dr. Alan Woodward and Dr. Kenneth Sands, to talk about their efforts within the state of Massachusetts to implement a disclosure, apology, and offer process to resolve medical liability issues and add to patient safety efforts, our main concern around here. Dr. Woodward is chairman of the Massachusetts Medical Society Committee on Professional Liability and a past president of the Medical Society. And Dr. Sands is Senior Vice President for Healthcare Quality at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. Both are prime proponents of this new effort and one which holds promise. So we welcome both of you to the show today. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you
for having us.
Well, litigation, let's talk about that for a minute. It's the typical way for harmed patients to seek recognition of the problem and compensation. Yet there's so many barriers and obstacles that make this a very inefficient and burdensome route to go, financially, emotionally. Plus, as a patient, I imagine that there's quite a steep learning curve, learning about tort reform and those kind of things, that there simply has to be a better way. So I hope that you can tell us what you're doing in the state of Massachusetts that helps ease this troublesome process.
Well, I'll start out. This is Dr. Woodward. We've been working for about 7 years to facilitate the adoption of disclosure, apology, and offer in Massachusetts because we think it provides a significantly better alternative and a better option for patients and for providers and for the healthcare system as a whole to deal with adverse outcomes of medical care.
So how did you get started?
Beginning about 2.5 years ago, we did what was called what led to a document called the Roadmap to Liability Reform. And what we were really trying to do was understand what had been done as a demonstration in some institutions nationally, University of Michigan being one particularly outstanding example of application of disclosure, apology, and offer. And what was the degree to which that model could be imported to other settings, specifically in Massachusetts. So we interviewed a set of stakeholders across the Commonwealth, and that included patient advocacy leaders, legislative leaders, bar association, both the defense bar and the plaintiff's bar, and malpractice insurers, and obviously hospitals and providers, to ask the question, were people ready to move to a disclosure, apology, offer type of model as opposed to the traditional liability model? And what we found was there was a large degree of interest in moving to that model from really all corners. There were some barriers identified, but the feeling was those barriers were surmountable. We have gotten started by using that information, putting it into a roadmap document which has been published, and now moving to actually doing demonstrations in certain hospitals, as well as creating a statewide resource for other institutions that might be interested in following a similar pathway.
Right. And I think most anyone you speak to would agree that the current liability system is counterproductive to patient safety, and it really doesn't serve anyone well, the patient, the provider, or the organization. So it seems like this makes a lot of common sense to move forward in that direction. Can you explain to us the process of disclosure, apology, and offer? How does that work?
Well, there are really 4 fundamental components, and we're calling this program in Massachusetts, we've expanded it to what we're calling the CARE program. But I'll start with disclosure, apology, and offer. The first basic premise is that you have a culture of safety at every healthcare enterprise, and you have an infrastructure capable of doing a comprehensive analysis of any adverse outcome and determining what went wrong and what can be done to prevent a recurrence and taking action to prevent such a recurrence. And then the disclosure part is to explain to the patient in detail what happened and what you found in the investigation and whether the adverse outcome was avoidable or was anticipated or recognized complication of a various procedure or intervention. In that disclosure process, if it has been determined that there was an avoidable injury to the patient, then there is an appropriate and sincere apology related to the patient, and if appropriate and warranted, an offer of compensation without the patient having to resort to litigation, as is currently most typically the course. We extended the definition and the nomenclature for our program in Massachusetts, we felt that communication, apology, and resolution more accurately reflected what we are trying to accomplish. We felt that disclosure implies sort of one-way communication, where we very much want the communication to be a two-way effort. We think apology is the critical component, and we know that in the vast majority of cases when litigation is pursued, that patients don't get an apology. And we know that apology is therapeutic both for the patient in moving forward in dealing with anger, and is therapeutic for the provider in dealing with the grief and the negative feelings having injured somebody. And the resolution component, we think, is broader than just offer. It's dealing with the patient's medical needs, it's dealing with their psychosocial needs, and it's compensating them financially to help defray any additional costs or impacts that the adverse outcome has had for the patient.
Oh, I like that a lot better. Communication, apology, and resolution. So is that unique to what you're doing?
It's philosophically similar to others, but we think it better captures the thinking about these programs currently. The only thing I would add to what Alan has said is that resolution often for patients means knowing that an institution has done things to make sure that the harm event will not occur again in the future. That ends up being something very important to patients. And so part of the resolution might be understanding what has been done to make the system safer. And so it really does go beyond that word offer.
I agree. I think offer, when you hear that word, you think of a financial outcome, but resolution, I do believe, just from most of the people I've spoken to, that that's really what people want, is to know that what they've gone through perhaps will save somebody else from having to have that same experience. So I like the word resolution. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Relative to preventing a recurrence, that information we also plan to disseminate across the state to other institutions. So the learning event is not just at the institution where the adversity occurred, but in a broader arena.
Sure, to truly have transparency, not just within the four walls, but to take it out and share it with others so that they can learn from that experience, right? I'm imagining, and I think somebody alluded to this before, that there have to be some barriers to the implementation of this. Are there? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, there's definitely some barriers, but they're surmountable barriers, and there are things that we are addressing with certain strategies. I'll name a few of the ones that came up more commonly when we were doing our survey. One is simply a level of discomfort with providers around disclosure and apology or communication and resolution. This isn't a skill that has typically been taught in medical school or residency, and in fact, a lot of physicians in the past were taught just the opposite, that when something goes wrong, you should try and communicate as little as possible and protect yourself by being retentive of information. So this is not necessarily the natural previous learning of providers, and so there's a level of discomfort on just how to do this. So there's a training agenda there. There's another issue that providers are concerned about, which has to do with whether some form of resolution like compensation will actually lead to some form of regulatory reporting. And there are reporting systems at both the state and federal level which are looking at how often a physician, for example, has had some payout in association with their care. And while those are always accompanied by the opportunity to explain the circumstances, physicians are naturally very anxious about any report that has to go out in relation to their care. So that is a source of a potential barrier. Something relatively specific to Massachusetts is something called the charitable immunity law. And it turns out in Massachusetts, the laws are written where nonprofit organizations such as hospitals are protected from lawsuits above a certain level. That number right now is $100,000. So if a party is interested in suing for a figure above that, they are forced to turn to naming individuals. And there's some sense that it would be hard for hospitals to get behind a coordinated effort like communication and resolution if they are in fact protected. So each of these things have ways to counteract the barrier. The issues around physician discomfort with disclosure and apology is really a training and education agenda, and we have found that to be a very effective strategy. In terms of reporting requirements, there's work that we're finding can be done at both the state and federal level to give more clarity about the fact that not all financial settlements are reflective of the fact that a single individual did not provide the right care. And the charitable immunity law it's really an issue that it's not an issue, that hospitals are certainly motivated to do the right thing and to do whatever in the best interest of the patient and the long-term performance in terms of liability, that this does function in the best interest of the institution.
Mm-hmm. I guess we would imagine that there would be some level of discomfort because, as you mentioned, it goes against training. Hopefully, though, if this communication and apology and resolution becomes something that we could really hold on to, maybe the folks that are coming up and are now being trained will be trained with that in mind. And so perhaps it won't be such a difficult thing for them to accomplish.
I think that's true. And I think the important thing to realize is that clinicians do recognize that the ethical and professional thing to do is to be straightforward and transparent and completely disclosing to patients. So it feels natural for them to go in the direction of communication and resolution. And so there's no resistance there in terms of it appealing to the ethical and professional considerations of the clinician.
Right. I can understand that. As we're speaking, I was wondering, is this just relate to hospitals or is it all healthcare-related organizations?
Well, historically, it's primarily been hospital systems and some of the larger hospital systems that have implemented this. The first that put it into full effect was the University of Michigan back in 2001. About 5 or 6 years ago, the Stanford Hospital System did it. And now multiple other hospital systems across the country and a few within our state have been working with this approach. But we also recognize there have been several other types of healthcare organizations. Several multi-specialty groups have implemented this. So it's harder for solo and small group practices to implement this because you need some infrastructure to provide that analysis. But the legislation that we passed in Massachusetts to enable this applies to all physicians and all work environments. I would mention that we just are establishing a task force of several of the liability insurers in Massachusetts to start to look at how they could work to provide support for smaller groups and individual physicians to go through this type of approach.
Okay. I want to reach out to our listeners for a moment. If you're just finding us, you picked a good day to do so. We are Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio, your healthcare and hospital survival guide. And I'm your hostess, Pat Rulo. And today we have two innovators with us when it comes to hospital disclosure and apology, Dr. Alan Woodward and Dr. Kenneth Sands with the Massachusetts Alliance for Communication and Resolution Following Medical Injury. And we're talking about communication, apology, resolution. And you mentioned briefly about liability insurers. Let's just go there for a minute. Has there been any opposition from those insurers regarding this new effort?
We have the collaboration of the major malpractice insurers in the state of Massachusetts. They are very engaged and interested. I would say that they are very interested in evaluating in a evidence-based way the effectiveness of this program, and they are participating with suspended judgment. I think they would like to see this be successful, but it is a change for them, and they're watching the data carefully.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know the University of Michigan, they've been watching that for a while, and I believe it's been shown to reduce the frequency of lawsuits. Is that correct?
That is correct. In fact, they've been able to reduce the number of cases going to litigation by about 90%. Stanford has had similar results. They have not been at it as long, and they're not quite as dramatic. But virtually all of the systems that have put this in place have shown a significant decrease, including the Reliant group in Massachusetts, have shown after a lag of the cases which are currently in litigation, the number of new suits drops off significantly when you use this as an alternative in advance of litigation. Clearly, it's beneficial for all parties. The average time in Massachusetts to an award is 5.5 years. Many take much longer than that. And so that's a very slow process if you're looking at significant financial impact on families and not all of the needs being covered through medical insurance.
Right.
So it certainly is a better approach for patients and their families.
Well, it sounds like a win-win, beneficial for all sides. Here's a question. Does this model help to improve patient safety? Have you found a reduction in defensive medicine, such as the reduction perhaps in unnecessary testing and procedures?
Well, I think it definitely improves patient safety. The most immediate way that, for example, the University of Michigan saw this is that the reporting of adverse events increased dramatically. So what happens is as physicians and other clinicians become comfortable with a transparent system that will support them and resolve these issues outside the court system, they become more comfortable reporting when something happens that might be a patient safety issue. So reporting in the University of Michigan increased by about tenfold. And all that additional information about potential risks to patient safety means that you have a greater chance of getting out in front and putting system fixes in place before they become a risk to patient safety. Mm-hmm. So the increase in transparency and the greater availability of information is one of the most immediate concerns for patient safety. The issue of defensive medicine, we think, is also very important and is likely to show improvement under this model. It's a little bit harder to measure in the short term how ordering practices have changed, although certainly the clinicians at the University of Michigan verbalize that they are less likely to order tests simply to avoid litigation because they have a level of comfort with the system.
I should mention, too, that at the University of Michigan, relative to the patient safety issue, the number of new incidents that rise to a significant level of patient injury have declined by about 2/3. That's as a result of this loop closure and efforts to improve patient safety. So I really think the positive outcome for patients and their families, as well as the toll that the current system takes on providers being tied up in litigation for 5.5 years on average to the time of an award, is a very onerous process for providers, too, as well as the constant comments that from counsel that you can only speak to me and can't speak to the patient and so on. I need to be very careful about what you say. Doesn't help providers deal with the guilt, and we call them the second victims. So we think it's clearly a better system for patients, clearly a better system for providers, and clearly better for patient safety improvement efforts and the healthcare system as a whole. And it will, as Ken pointed out, take a significant period of time, but we do believe that if we can take the fear out of the equation for providers, that the practice of defensive medicine will diminish over time, and that's to all of our benefit if the healthcare system, if we're able to weed out unnecessary costs in the healthcare system and better apply those to making sure that everybody has appropriate access to and coverage for healthcare services.
Oh, very well said. I agree with you. How can our listeners learn more about you and what you do?
The easiest way to get a lot more information about our program is to go to our website. And you mentioned our organization earlier, which is the Massachusetts Alliance for Communication and Resolution Following Medical Injury. We have an acronym, which is MACRMI, MACRMI, and we have a website, which is www.macrame.info or www.macrame.net. And that will take you to our website, which has a lot more information about the program in communication and resolution in general. There's also information about the pilot projects that we are doing in Massachusetts in several hospitals, and information about how to get started in this area if you are an interested provider organization.
So, gentlemen, do you have any final words of advice for us today?
Well, I think the message is clear that this is a better system for patients and providers and for healthcare and our healthcare system as a whole. So we would encourage your listeners to speak up in their local communities or at their state level or with their local healthcare organizations and encourage them to look at this alternative and consider implementing it. We actually have seen in several states now significant efforts to move in this direction. So it's expanding across the country, system by system and community by community, and in some cases, state by state. The Oregon governor just signed a bill similar to the one that was signed in Massachusetts to facilitate adoption of this approach. And there have been several grants in other states to encourage this approach. So we do think it's picking up momentum, but the more people are aware of it and they speak up and suggest that this is a better approach, the more rapidly it will be implemented.
Well, I encourage all of our listeners to go to that website. It's www.macrmi.net. Both of you, I appreciate your taking the time out to share this exciting news with us today. And please feel free to keep us updated with new results if you want to share them with us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Well, thank you. It's our pleasure. Let's spend the next 2 minutes with Elizabeth Bailey, patient advocate and author of the book, The Patient's Checklist. Elizabeth, most people don't think of hospitals as dangerous places. Why do you say they are?
Well, under the best of circumstances, mistakes in care can be made because doctors and nurses are fallible. They're human. And given the frantic pace and the fragmented care in today's technology-driven hospitals, mistakes in communication and lack of careful attention to detail are not just likely, but inevitable. Patient deaths from preventable medical errors in hospitals are one of the leading causes of death in this country. If it was categorized as such, it would be the 6th leading cause of death for Americans. And just consider these statistics of hospital care. A hospital patient, on average, is subject to 1 medication error per day. Every 6 minutes, a patient dies in an American hospital from a hospital-acquired infection, an infection acquired after admission, usually from a healthcare worker's failure to simply wash his or her hands. 65% of identified adverse patient events were found to have communication failures as the underlying cause. Simple information is not being properly relayed from nurse to doctor or nurse to nurse at the shift change. That's why I feel that the best thing patients and families can do is be actively engaged and vigilant about monitoring care while they're in the hospital.
And your book is a great resource for our folks to stay informed and empowered. So with that in mind, how can our listeners find out more about you and how can they contact you?
The easiest way to find out about me and my book is to go to my website, which is thepatientschecklist.com. The book is called The Patient's Checklist, and it's 10 simple checklists to keep you safe, sane, and organized during a hospital stay. And, of course, it's available on Amazon.com.
Well, good. Thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing your simple hospital checklist as a way to keep us safe, sane, and organized. We look forward to learning more next week.
Thank you.
You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Now you can join us every Saturday morning on 2 Cleveland, Ohio stations from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW and on 2 Phoenix stations on Saturday morning in Phoenix, Arizona from 6 to 7 Mountain Time on AM 1360 KPXQ. And on Sundays in Phoenix from 9 to 10 Mountain Time on AM 960 KKNT. Or listen to us live online from anywhere in the world at the station's websites. I am your hostess, Pat Rulo. So happy to spend this hour with you to help you survive any healthcare or hospital encounter. Even though last week was our formal birthday, or as we call it, Radioversary, we're still celebrating. So today we're going to play the birthday edition of our 3 most requested games, America's favorite radio games, just by the way. Fear the Wheelchair, Squeak Up and Stay Alive, and shocking news from around the world. And since our first year went by so fast, we are going to play a speed round, a lightning round of these 3 games. And we're even equipped with birthday noisemakers, horns, and squeakers. All right, let's enter the game chamber and start with our first game, Fear the Wheelchair, always so well announced by Joe.
Fear the Wheelchair.
Excellent job. Thank you, Joe. All right, this game came about because I do fear the wheelchairs in a hospital. Think of how seldom they are cleaned and how much bacteria can live on them. So Fear the Wheelchair is a representation of all hospital hazards. Listen as Joe reads some right or wrong statements, and then even though I can't hear you, shout out your answer along with Bob. Is the statement right? Or is it wrong? All right, and for the birthday lightning round, let's put 60 seconds on the clock and see how many Bob can get right. Ready, Joe?
Ready. Right or wrong, the germiest object in the patient's room is the doorknob.
What do you think, Bob?
That's wrong. Nope.
Yay. What is it, Bob?
Oh, it's got to be the TV changer.
Yes.
Got me all confused. I haven't played this in so long. I mean, it was only a week ago, but right or wrong, hand sanitizer does not kill the C. diff bacterium.
That is right.
That is right. Good job, Bob.
All right, or wrong, bacteria can live on fabric for 90 days or longer.
What do you think, Bobby?
Oh, that's definitely right.
Yes, that is right. Cross-contamination.
You guys are faster at the squeaks than I am with the claps. Right or wrong, most store-bought chicken is fed wholesome whole grains.
Oh, what do you think, Bob?
That's wrong.
You're right. That is wrong. They're fed antibiotics, right, Joe?
Yes.
Sure.
Some have no legs, right?
Some have no legs?
Isn't that what they said? Was it? Because they're so big, they don't have legs?
No, they're so big they can't walk.
Is this a chicken joke?
I don't know.
Is that a chicken joke? Any more?
Yeah, there's a few more.
Okay.
Right or wrong, microfiber is the cloth of choice when cleaning around the house.
What do you think,
No, that's
Bobby?
right.
Yep, that is right. If you guys listen to Daryl Hicks, it is right. We got a couple more seconds on the clock.
I'm sorry. Right or wrong, genetically modified foods must be marked as such.
What do you think, Bobby?
You definitely have to have them marked and they have to be labeled that way.
But they're not, Bob.
I know.
Oh, Bob. Any more, Joe?
Yes, final one. Right or wrong, Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio is a powerful resource for all your healthcare-related safety needs.
I think that's right.
Yay, it is right. Yes, well, thank you, guys. That was a great game. We did that in 60 seconds or less. And now, let's move on to the next game. Shocking news from around the world. Let's hear that, Joe.
Shocking news from around the world.
The birthday edition, no less. All right, I don't know how fast we can do this in 60 seconds, but I'm going to read some news and you guys will decide if it is a shock or a crock. Meaning, is it true? That would be a shock. Or is it false? And that would be a crock. So is the statement a shock? Oh. How about wow?
Oh.
Wow. Joe is a shock. Or is it a crock? Oh. There you go. We're crazy. All right, let me pull some news from the game chamber. All right, guys. Researchers in the UK said that leather handbags in particular pose the most significant health hazard because their spongy material is an ideal environment for most bacteria. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm saying that's a shock.
What do you think, Joe?
It's a crock.
Bobby's right. It's a shock. Remember we talked...
Is that right?
It's... How about wow?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow. Wow, that is a shock. It is true. Think about all the dirty purse bottoms. Joe doesn't want to think about that, do you? All right, anyway, folks, clean the bottom of your purse and don't put them on your kitchen counters. Remember Chuck Gerba talked about that, Bobby?
Yes, he did. He said they were very, very dirty.
Okay.
Extremely dirty.
Yes. All right, guys. Shocking news number 2. The iPad 2 tablets can interfere with pacemakers. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say it's a shock.
I'm going to say it's a crock.
Joe. It's a shock. Wow.
Wow.
It is true. The magnets in an iPad 2 tablets and their covers are capable of interfering with heart implants, including pacemakers. Patients who have or may be a candidate for implantable defibrillators should talk to their doctor about precautions if they use a tablet like the iPad 2. What do you think of that?
Wow.
That is a wow.
That's a wow.
All right, shocking news from around the world, number 3. Men with high testosterone are more likely to wear blue in competitions. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
I'm going to say that's a crock.
What do you think, Joe?
It's a crock.
It is a crock. You guys are right. There you go. What do you think the color really is?
Red.
Red, yeah.
It is red, yeah. Why do so many sports players and athletes choose to wear the color red when they compete? A new study to be published in Psychological Science suggests that it may have to do with their testosterone levels.
Maybe that's the reason Tiger Woods wears red on Sunday.
Absolutely.
That's when all the girls are chasing him.
I don't know about that. I don't want to hear about that. The last shocking news from around the world. Lipsticks and lip glosses are made of natural ingredients and are safe to eat. Is that a shock or is it a crock?
No, that's a crock.
That's definitely a crock.
That is absolutely a crock. You're right. A study conducted by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration in 2012 showed that more than 400 popular lipstick brands contained twice as much lead as previously thought, as well as cadmium, chromium, aluminum, and 5 other toxic metals. And I have to share this for all you gals or people out there who wear lipstick. Maybelline Color Sensation by L'Oreal USA was found to have the most lead of all the brands that the FDA tested, with 270 times more than the brand with the lowest amount of lead, which happened to be, the lowest one is Wet n Wild Mega Mixers Lip Balm, which happens to be the least expensive. So that just goes to show that a high-priced lipstick does not mean it's safe. Well, we could play this one all day because there's so much bizarre healthcare news, it's hard to keep up. Thank you guys for playing everyone's favorite game.
Shocking news from around the world.
You got it. All right, speaking of squeaks, let's switch to the always popular Squeak Up and Stay Alive. This game came about one day when I innocently suggested that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that if you have a question of your doctor or nurse, get squeaky. Ask questions. So I will read a question from the birthday game chamber, and you guys will squeak your squeakers when you think you have the answer. So let's try for another 60 seconds on the clock, shall we? Yeah.
I'm waiting on you.
Are you guys sleeping or what? The heck? It's a birthday party. Woo, I'm not taking you guys anywhere.
Okay, come on. Let's get it going here, girl.
Right.
You're taking too long.
Here we go. The Squeak Up and Stay Alive question number 1 of the birthday edition. One of the easiest ways to prevent an infection in the hospital is to ask everyone to... Joe.
Wash their hands.
Yes,
Yes, Joe. That's good, Joe.
All right. The Squeak Up and Stay Alive question number 2 of the birthday edition. One of the easiest ways to prevent an infection. I just said that. Sorry. Bed sores are caused by 3 things. Name one. Bobby.
Shear.
Shear, yes. Do you guys know what the other 2 are?
I don't even know what shear is.
It's shear, like if somebody's laying on a bed and then they start sliding down the sheets and the sheets are pulling in one direction and they're sinking in the other direction. It shears the skin against the sheets.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's shear. The other is friction. You know, like they jam a bedpan under a wet
Bottom.
butt. That's friction. It could tear the skin. And then pressure, because sometimes a bed sore is called a pressure sore.
That's because you lay there so long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Wow.
All right. All right, guys. That was good. The Squeak Up and Stay Alive. Question number 3 of the birthday edition. The statistic is every patient is subjected to at least how many medications errors per day? Is it none, 1, or 13? Oh, that's Joe Squeaker. What's the answer?
2.
It's not on the list, Joe.
Oh. We said, 13.
No. We'd all be dead if we were all.
Hey, Joe, I tried to give you the answer. It's 1.
Yeah, 1 in every patient is subjected to at least 1 medication error per day. 13 would be horrible.
They'd be dead.
Absolutely. All right, this is a lightning round. I think we're taking too much time. Squeak up and stay alive. Question number 4 of the birthday edition. The most dangerous time of year to be in a hospital is... Bobby.
It's going to be summertime.
Yep, the July effect. Remember that? Remember why?
Yeah, because everybody's going on vacation. Nobody's there.
Exactly. The July effect. All right, the Squeak Up and Stay Alive question. I don't remember which one of the birthday edition. Women are misdiagnosed most often for this. Bobby.
Heart attacks.
Yes. Bobby, you're paying attention.
I paid attention for once.
You're a good boy.
I even talk.
All right, Squeak Up and Stay Alive question again of the birthday edition. Lay this on your hospital tray table so everyone knows you are informed and an empowered patient. Joe.
Your book.
Yes! Right. Copy of the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide. You guys are awesome, you're fun, you're great, and very speedy. I love you guys. All right. Always a fun and a fast way to share very serious information. Well, thank you guys for playing the Radioversary Lightning Round edition of our 3 favorite games. Shocking news from around the world, Squeak Up and Stay Alive, and...
Fear the Wheelchair.
Happy Radioversary to us.
You got it. That's great. Happy birthday.
And listeners, don't go anywhere. There's so much more you can learn about healthcare and hospital safety on America's favorite radio show, Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Well, today, I'm honored to have the spokesperson for this smart alternative to AARP with us today, and he is the legendary Chuck Woolery. Listen, as I spend the next 2 minutes with Chuck. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Chuck?
Good. Nice to be on your show.
Well, thank you. How can our listeners who may currently be involved with AARP make the smart move to Generation America?
When you're moving parts of your life from one entity to another, like AARP to Generation America, they handle all that.
Right.
They take care of all that. And a lot of times, since we're not an insurance company, like AARP is an insurance company, so they're going to charge you what they can charge you. We're looking for the best deal for you, so a lot of times we can get a much better deal for you.
Pretty much all Medicare supplement plans are the same. It's the price that's different, and so
that's somebody who advocates for you and looks out for your best interest, and that's what drew me to them, is because that's what they do, and that's what they should do. AARP should do, frankly, but they don't.
It's about being aware and knowing that you have choices. It's like anything else. If you don't know that it's available, what you don't know, you don't know. So that's why I'm glad to have you on the show and just get this out there. So the first thing we can do is to join Generation America, not just for the excellent benefits, but more importantly, to show our support, to build the voice of sensible thinking people, and to change the current precarious path currently being laid for our seniors, right?
Well, that's why you're on radio. I'm not. That is about as concise as you can possibly put it.
Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you.
To learn more and to join Generation America, visit generationamerica.org. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio every Saturday morning in Cleveland, Ohio, and every Saturday and Sunday morning in Phoenix, Arizona. I am Pat Rulo, your hostess and author of the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, available at all of our live speaking events or at our website, speakupandstayalive.com. And if you do not have access to the internet and want a copy of the book, you can call me, and I will get it out to you right away. Lots of folks get the book this way. So here is my phone number, 440-725-5462. That's 440-725-5462. And if you're one of the few left around town who do not own a copy of the book, today is the day to get it. You never know when a hospital stay will pop up. You need to be prepared ahead of time. Or get a copy or two and give one to a friend. What a great life-saving gift. I encourage everyone to own this important book, not because I wrote it, but because you need it. And speaking of reading, Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio is featured in the Cleveland Business Connects magazine in the May edition. And what's really kind of cool about this article is that it was assigned to a freelance writer by the magazine, and it turned out that the writer was a former piano student of mine from, well, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. So thank you to the author, Nee Napoleon Light. Oh, and I also want to thank the photographers, Larry and Alice Aubuchon, Creative Solutions Photography in Arizona, and you can find them at creativesolutionsphoto.com. So if you get the chance, pick up a copy, Cleveland Business Connects, a publication all about the business trends in Northeast Ohio. Or you can read the article at our website, speakupandstayalive.com. Well, today we talked about 3 things I'm sure we all wish a hospital and physicians would do after a medical error, and that is disclose. In other words, voluntarily tell us what happened. Apologize, and that doesn't necessarily mean admit any wrongdoing, but just to say, hey, I'm sorry this happened, and we will look into what caused it so that it might not happen to others. And finally, come with some sort of suitable offer that just might avoid the ugly process of litigation or lawsuits. And our guests, Dr. Alan Woodward and Dr. Alan Woodward and Dr. Kenneth Sands shared their efforts within the state of Massachusetts to implement a disclosure, apology, and offer process to resolve medical liability issues and to add to patient safety efforts. And we brought back all 3 of the most requested radio games of all times: Fear the Wheelchair, Shocking News from Around the World, and Squeak Up and Stay Alive, the Lightning Round or Birthday or Radioversary Edition. Just a way to deliver important information in a bit of a silly and therefore memorable way. Now, if you missed some of today's show, you were silly. When you join us each week, you may be adding years to your life or to the life of someone you know and love. So set your alarm clocks for Saturday and Sunday mornings and tune in. And tell your friends they deserve to be safe too. And if you want to hear the show again, or if you want to play it for a friend in need, simply go to the radio link at the speakupandstayalive.com website to listen to today's program. We create YouTube videos of each show. So not only do you get to hear this awesome information, but you get to see what we look like. You might want to do that anyway, just to help you remember more of today's non-apologetic information. Start your week with an O. Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Oh, and be sure to listen next week. I have quite an interesting guest, a former hospital CEO who was the first to blog about his hospital's infection rates and wrong site surgeries in an effort to promote and increase transparency in healthcare. He's going to share his thoughts about hospital-acquired infections. He's a bit of a maverick and slightly controversial. You do not want to miss this. And of course, the boys will be here to play whatever game they want to play. Always a fun way to share important healthcare and hospital survival tips and tools with you. So when does all of this good stuff happen? That's next Saturday morning, where you can find us in Cleveland, Ohio, from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK, and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW. Or listen live via the internet. Check the speakupandstayalive.com website to find out how. In the meantime, I hope you have a happy and a healthy week. I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem or as a substitute for consulting a licensed medical professional.
Survive.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive. Generation America, the smart, conservative, and traditional 50-plus membership organization. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. For instance, if you're looking for a quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.